Stop scrolling. Don't blink. Because if you leave now, you'll miss the one idea that could quietly rewire how you see love, belief, and your future. Most people don't fail at relationships because they didn't care enough. They fail because no one ever explained the rules of the game they were playing. We're taught to chase feelings, not foundations. We're told to wait for the right person, not become the right one. And when things fall apart, we blame timing, luck, or fate, anything except the system we were operating in. But what if the problem was never love? What if it was the way we were trained to think about it? In the next few minutes, I'm going to challenge assumptions you didn't even realize you were carrying. Ideas so common they feel like truth, but so flawed they quietly sabotage your future. This isn't motivational noise. This isn't feel-good advice. This is about how belief actually works, why it collapses, and how it can be rebuilt stronger than before. If you've ever said, "I don't believe anymore," if you've ever felt torn between ambition and connection, if you've ever wondered whether real partnership still exists in a world full of shortcuts, then this isn't just a video, it's a mirror. What you're about to hear won't flatter you. It won't promise easy answers. But it will give you something far more valuable: clarity. The kind that makes you uncomfortable at first, then impossible to ignore. By the end of this, you won't just see relationships differently, you'll see yourself differently. Your past will make sense, your patterns will become obvious, and your future will stop feeling random. So stay with me, not because this is entertaining, but because this might be the conversation no one ever had the courage to start. Listen closely, because this part matters more than people realize. Belief doesn't disappear overnight, it erodes, slowly, quietly, one disappointment at a time, one broken promise, one moment where expectations collide with reality and reality doesn't care how much effort you put in. At first you explain it away, you say, "It's fine, it happens." Then it happens again, and again, and eventually, without announcing it, your mind adapts. It lowers expectations as a defense mechanism, not because you're weak, but because the brain is designed to survive pain, not chase ideals. So when people say, "I just don't believe anymore," what they're really saying is, "I learned patterns that taught me belief was inefficient." And that's important, because belief is not an emotion. It's a model. It's an internal prediction system about how the future will behave. When enough data points contradict the model, the mind updates it. That's not failure. That's intelligence at work. The problem starts when people confuse a temporary model with a permanent truth. You didn't stop believing because love isn't real. You stopped believing because the version of love you experienced was flawed, incomplete, or incompatible with who you were becoming. And instead of recalibrating the model, most people shut the system down entirely. They say, "I'm done." They say, "I don't need this." They say, "It's better to be alone." But that's not strength. That's a shutdown protocol. Belief doesn't die. It goes dormant. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't admit: when you stop believing, you don't become free. You become smaller, safer, more predictable. You design your life around avoiding disappointment instead of building something meaningful. Belief is risky. That's why it matters. Think about it. Every breakthrough humanity has ever made started with belief before evidence. Someone believed flight was possible before physics caught up. Someone believed electricity could change the world before infrastructure existed. Someone believed reusable systems could outperform disposable ones before failure after failure proved otherwise. Belief always looks irrational before it looks inevitable. Love is no different. The mistake isn't believing and getting hurt. The mistake is concluding that belief itself was the problem. Pain is not proof that belief failed. Pain is proof that belief was tested. And here's where rebuilding belief gets misunderstood. People think it means becoming naive again, trusting blindly, ignoring patterns. That's not rebuilding, that's regression. Rebuilding belief is an intellectual process. You analyze what failed, you isolate variables. You separate the concept from the execution. Was it love that failed, or boundaries? Was it commitment or compatibility? Was it belief or unrealistic expectations mixed with poor communication? Most people never ask these questions. They just generalize the failure and label the entire future as broken. But the future doesn't care about your conclusions. It responds only to your preparation. When I say I believe again, I'm not saying I forgot the past. I'm saying I understood it. I understand now that belief without structure collapses. I understand that attraction without alignment decays. I understand that intensity without direction burns out. That understanding didn't weaken belief, it refined it. There's a version of belief that is reckless, emotional, impulsive, and there's a version of belief that is deliberate, disciplined, engineered. The second one survives. Rebuilding belief means choosing optimism with evidence, not hope without responsibility. It means accepting that the future is uncertain, but refusing to let uncertainty turn into cynicism. Cynicism feels smart, it sounds intelligent, it gets applause online, but it produces nothing. Builders are believers, not because they're blind, but because they're stubborn enough to try again with better tools. When you rebuild belief, you stop asking, "Will this hurt me?" and start asking, "What system would make this work?" That shift changes everything. You stop looking for someone to complete you and start asking how two complete individuals could amplify each other. You stop chasing chemistry alone and start valuing character, values, and trajectory. You stop romanticizing chaos and start respecting consistency. That's not settling, that's upgrading. Belief matures the same way intelligence does. It becomes quieter, sharper, and more selective. You don't announce it, you embody it. And here's the part people don't talk about enough. Rebuilding belief in someone else requires rebuilding belief in yourself first. If you don't trust your own judgment, you'll never trust the future. If you don't respect your own standards, you'll resent anyone who meets them halfway. If you don't believe you can grow, you'll subconsciously choose people who confirm that stagnation. So belief starts internally, not as self-love slogans, but as competence, discipline, integrity, the quiet confidence that comes from doing what you said you would do, even when no one is watching. That kind of belief is magnetic, and once it's rebuilt properly, it doesn't disappear easily. It bends under pressure, but it doesn't break. It adapts, it learns, it improves. That's why I can say this without hesitation. I believe again, not because the world convinced me, but because I rebuilt the framework that belief stands on. And if you're listening to this wondering whether belief is still possible for you, understand this one thing: the future doesn't require you to be unbroken. It requires you to be honest, intentional, and willing to try again, smarter than before. Belief isn't something you wait to feel. It's something you decide to build. And once you do, the future has no choice but to respond. Now let's talk about the part most people misunderstand, and the part that quietly determines whether everything we just discussed actually works. Love is not a fantasy. It's not a mood. It's not a coincidence. Love is a mission, and missions require clarity, structure, and shared direction. Without those, even the strongest emotions collapse under their own weight. Most people are taught to treat love like a feeling you fall into, something spontaneous, something that just happens, and for a moment that sounds romantic. But if you zoom out and really look at the data of human behavior, you see a pattern. Feelings fluctuate, motivation spikes and crashes, chemistry fades, stress enters the system, life applies pressure. What survives is design. When two people come together without a shared mission, the relationship becomes a negotiation of comfort. Who sacrifices more? Who adapts? Who shrinks? Over time, resentment grows not because anyone is evil, but because the system was never designed to scale. That's why love fails more often than it succeeds. Not because people don't care, but because they don't build. A mission changes that. A mission means both people understand what they're moving toward, not just in vague terms like happiness, but in concrete values: how they think, how they handle pressure, how they make decisions when emotion and logic disagree, how they define loyalty, growth, and responsibility. Without that alignment, love becomes noise. With it, love becomes force. Here's the reality most people avoid. A relationship will either multiply your trajectory or dilute it. There is no neutral. You don't stay the same. You either accelerate or decay. And this is where people get uncomfortable, because acceleration requires standards. Real partnership isn't about being accepted exactly as you are forever. It's about being supported while you become something better. That means friction. It means feedback. It means moments where comfort is sacrificed for progress. A mission-driven relationship doesn't ask, "How do I feel right now?" It asks, "Is this moving us forward?" That question changes behavior. You communicate differently. You argue differently. You plan differently. Even love feels different. It becomes quieter, more stable, less reactive. You stop performing and start cooperating. And cooperation is powerful. When two people align around a mission, trust stops being fragile. It becomes structural. You don't trust because things are perfect. You trust because incentives are aligned. You know the other person isn't trying to win against you. They're trying to build with you. That's rare. Most relationships are emotionally intense but strategically empty. High passion, low direction. That imbalance creates chaos. You feel deeply, but you don't know where you're going. And when stress hits, the system collapses. A mission absorbs stress. It gives conflict a purpose. Disagreement stops being a threat and becomes data. You're not fighting to be right. You're solving for what works. That's not cold. That's intelligent. And intelligence in love doesn't kill romance. It preserves it. The idea that love should be effortless is one of the most damaging myths we've ever accepted. Anything worth building requires effort. The difference is whether that effort is wasted or compounded. A mission compounds effort. You're not pouring energy into chaos. You're investing it into something with a future. And let's be clear about something important. A mission doesn't mean control. It doesn't mean domination. It doesn't mean one person dragging the other toward their vision. A real mission is co-created. It emerges when two individuals with strong identities choose to align. Not because they're afraid to be alone, but because together they can do something neither could do independently. That's partnership at its highest level. In that kind of relationship, love is not used to escape life. It's used to engage with it more fully. You don't hide from reality together. You face it together, and this requires maturity. It requires letting go of the idea that love is supposed to complete you. You are not incomplete, you are unfinished, there's a difference. Completion implies dependency. Growth implies collaboration. When love becomes a mission, accountability replaces fantasy. You don't disappear into each other, you sharpen each other. You challenge assumptions. You raise standards. That kind of love doesn't trend on social media. It doesn't look dramatic. But it lasts. And here's something most people won't say out loud. A mission in love filters people out. It forces honesty early. It reveals incompatibility before damage accumulates. That's not a loss. That's efficiency. When you know what you're building, you stop wasting time on what can't support it. You stop mistaking attention for connection. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You stop calling chaos passion. You choose alignment. And alignment creates momentum. Momentum changes how you experience everything. Stress becomes manageable. Sacrifice becomes meaningful. The future stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like a project. That's when love stops being fragile. That's when it becomes resilient. Not because emotions never fluctuate, but because the foundation doesn't depend on them. A mission doesn't remove uncertainty. It gives you a reason to move forward anyway. So if you're listening to this and wondering why past relationships felt exhausting, unstable, or confusing, the answer might not be that you cared too much. It might be that there was no mission, no shared direction, no agreed values, no system strong enough to carry the weight of two evolving human beings. Love isn't supposed to be light, it's supposed to be strong. And strength comes from structure. When love becomes a mission, it stops asking for less from you. It asks for your best. And in return, it gives you something rare. A future that's built, not hoped for. Think about that. If belief is what gets you started, and preparation is what sustains you, then mission is what determines whether love actually goes somewhere. And anything that doesn't go somewhere eventually disappears. So don't look for love that feels easy. Look for love that moves forward, because feelings fade. But a shared mission creates momentum. And momentum, once it starts, changes everything. Now we arrive at the part where everything becomes real, because belief without action is just a story you tell yourself, and missions without capable people fail fast. Becoming worthy before she arrives is not about ego, it's about responsibility. Most people think preparation starts when someone shows up, when the relationship begins, when the opportunity appears. That's backwards. By the time something meaningful enters your life, it's already too late to become the person it requires. You either are ready, or you aren't. The future doesn't wait for potential. It responds to readiness. And this is where people get uncomfortable, because it removes the illusion that timing is random. It forces you to accept that many missed connections weren't bad luck. They were misalignment between who you were and what the moment demanded. Preparation is invisible. No one applauds it. No one sees it. And that's exactly why it works. Becoming worthy means developing internal stability before asking someone else to share their life with you. Emotional regulation, self-respect, the ability to delay gratification, the capacity to handle stress without collapsing or outsourcing blame. These aren't romantic traits, they're structural traits. A relationship amplifies who you already are. It does not fix you. If you are inconsistent alone, you'll be chaotic together. If you avoid responsibility alone, you'll resent accountability in partnership. So the work starts in private. It starts with doing what you said you would do when no one is checking. It starts with building competence in your craft, your thinking, your habits. Not to impress anyone, but to eliminate fragility. Fragile people romanticize love. Stable people build it. Becoming worthy also means understanding your own patterns. Why you're attracted to certain personalities. Why you tolerate behavior you later complain about. Why you confuse intensity with connection. Until you understand yourself, your choices will repeat, even if the faces change. This isn't about perfection. It's about clarity. You don't need to be flawless to deserve a future partner. You need to be honest about your flaws and actively working on them. There's a massive difference between imperfection and negligence. Negligence is expecting someone to accept what you refuse to improve. Preparation means closing that gap. And here's something rarely discussed. Becoming worthy isn't about becoming impressive. It's about becoming reliable, predictable in the right ways, calm under pressure, consistent in values. That's what people trust. Trust is not built through words or promises. It's built through repeated evidence over time. When your actions align with your intentions, even when it's inconvenient, that alignment creates self-trust, and self-trust changes how you show up in relationships. You stop over-explaining. You stop chasing validation. You stop negotiating your boundaries because you're afraid of losing someone. You don't cling. You choose. Prepared people choose differently. They don't ask, will this person like me? They ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? That question filters everything. Becoming worthy also requires redefining strength. Strength isn't dominance. It isn't emotional suppression. It's the ability to remain open without being careless, to be vulnerable without being dependent. That balance takes work. It requires learning how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, how to listen without immediately defending, how to accept feedback without collapsing into shame or inflating into ego. These are learned skills, not personality traits. And the people who invest in them quietly move into a different category. They stop participating in dysfunctional cycles. They stop being available for chaos. Not because they think they're better, but because they're clearer. Clarity is attractive direction. It signals intention. It signals that you're not improvising your life in real time. And let's be honest, preparation is lonely. While others are chasing distractions, you're building foundations. While others are reacting, you're designing. While others are waiting to feel ready, you're becoming ready. No one cheers for that phase, but that phase determines everything. Becoming worthy also means understanding that love is not a reward for suffering. You don't earn a healthy relationship by enduring unhealthy ones. Growth doesn't come from pain alone. It comes from reflection and adjustment. Pain without learning is just damage. So you extract lessons. You integrate them. You change behavior. That's preparation. And when you do this consistently, something shifts. You stop needing love to validate your existence. You want partnership not to fill a void, but to expand a life that already has momentum. That's when love becomes additive, not compensatory. You don't rush. You don't settle. You don't force timing. You trust the process because you're participating in it. Becoming worthy doesn't guarantee outcomes. It guarantees alignment. It ensures that when the moment arrives, you won't sabotage it through insecurity, inconsistency, or unhealed patterns. You'll recognize it. You'll respect it. You'll be capable of sustaining it. And here's the paradox. When you truly prepare, you become less anxious about whether it will happen. Not because you don't care, but because you know you're building a life that works either way. That confidence is not loud. It's grounded. And grounded people attract grounded partners. So when I say I'm becoming the man she deserves before she arrives, I'm not waiting. I'm working. I'm not imagining. I'm constructing. Because the future doesn't respond to hope. It responds to readiness. And if there's one thing to leave you with, let it be this: don't prepare to be chosen. Prepare to be capable. Because when preparation meets opportunity, the future doesn't hesitate. It recognizes you.